what an honor it is to be here with you all.
Let me just give you a personal welcome to the free state of Florida.
We as conservatives have got to stop playing defense.
It is time for us to fight against the tyranny of the left.
It's time for our generation to start to rise up and take back America for freedom. It is time that with a sense of urgency, we start to say, here's what we believe and why we believe it.
Let's tell the liberal media that we are here and we are here to stay.
When I see a room full of young people get it, makes me realize we can win.
There is no better country than the United States. This country is worth saving.
And it is you, the young people, that are leading the revival for America.
It is up to us. It is up to our generation.
Keep fighting hard, and we will win. Thank you, Turning Point.
Are you sick of Hollywood double standards and want to get the latest in entertainment news without hearing host shill for the left? If so, join Politics and me, Alex Clark, as I bring you pop culture without the propaganda every single day on TPUSA Live.
What if I told you that this has all happened before? The riots, violence, church burning, attacks on police, destruction of private property.
My name is Sammy Steigman. I am a Holocaust survivor.
This is the reality of what happens when you have capitalism that goes to socialism.
El socialismo no funciona.
El socialismo no funciona.
Good evening. Oh, is this working? Oh, good evening. Wow, this is amazing. My name is Brooke Ferry, and I am the chapter president and founder of Turning Point USA at BSU. I started this chapter my freshman year in 2019 with the passion for intellectual diversity on campus. And I started this chapter with literally 0 people, and now it has grown to over 1,000 members. This chapter has been my #1 priority since starting it. I'm so proud of everyone and everything who have contributed to grow this group at such a fast rate. I would especially like to thank our advisor, Professor Nafisa Long, as well as a bunch of students that have helped make this event possible, especially Julie, Darby, Kylie, Daniel, Mary, AJ, Fuad, and Abby, as well as the support from the community, high schools, Bishop Kelly, CUNA, and Mountain View, as well as NNU and James Nelson. We are blown away by the response from the community for this event, and I would especially like to appreciate Dr. Bob and the Shillman Foundation for their generous grant that makes this Exposing CRT tour possible. I'd like to thank security and other law enforcement, not only for their amazing help today working to keep us safe, but also for their diligence and hard work every day, putting their lives on the line for us. I could not continue without thanking TPUSA staff, Kim and Brandon. You have all been so supportive of our chapter here and have helped us grow to what it is today. And most of all, thank you to the Turning Point USA team for supporting our chapter and giving us the resources and training to pull off an event of this size. And if you're interested in starting a chapter, please check out the TPUSA table outside. We'd love to help you get more involved. And if you're interested in getting more involved in the BSU chapter, make sure you follow at TPUSA_BSU. And finally, we encourage you to attend the largest conservative event of the year, America Fest, this December in Phoenix, Arizona. This will be an event you do not want to miss. And again, thank you all for joining us, and the Charlie Kirk will be out in a moment.
Good evening. I'm Pastor Rick Brown. I'm a friend of Charlie's, and I grew up in Idaho, so I'm an Idaho kid, and I'm ministering in Southern California right now. And when he told me he was doing this tour, I'm like, I have to go up and hang out with my people in Idaho. I went to Star Elementary in the 6th grade. Anybody go to Star? Hey, he asked me if we would pray. You know, there's a time in our country where it was a standard motto, God and country. And so, a lot of people are not into God these days, and a lot of young people hate our country, but I want you guys to know, you guys are awesome because it restores my faith in your generation. It's a blessing. Let's pray before Charlie comes out. Father, we thank you for this night. We thank you for your goodness and just the opportunity and the freedom that we still have to meet in this venue. Thank you for every young man, young woman that wants to stand for liberty in this room, Lord. Bless them. We pray for your Holy Spirit to minister tonight. Speak through Charlie. Take this time and touch all of our hearts to give us a renewed love for you and a love for our nation. Lord, we thank you for your goodness in Jesus' name. And we all said, amen. Woo!
Critical race theory is the most racist thing that is being spread in popular life in America.
Critical race theory is bigoted It is a lie.
Racism is now being taught to our kids.
Dividing kids based on race, trying to say some are oppressors and some are oppressed is absolutely unacceptable.
CRT is racist. It is abusive. It discriminates against one's color.
It's not critical race theory. It's racism.
Now, welcoming to the stage, Charlie Kirk.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Please sit down. What a great group here in Idaho. This is awesome. I want to first thank the amazing Turning Point USA students that are putting this event together. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all you've done to put this together. We wish we could be on campus, but, you know, whatever. I can't remember your name, the faculty sponsor, Boise State. Please stand up. Any professor that sponsors Turning Point USA deserves credit, and you deserve great credit. So thank you. We had a chance to meet last night, and I just want to say, you know, we are always up against opposition at Turning Point. It's very rare that we get a professor that says, you know what, I believe in intellectual diversity, because far too often on college campuses, they want everyone to look different but think the same. And at Turning Point USA, we're trying to fight back and try to have actual intellectual diversity. So thank you. I want to thank all the Turning Point students from high school that are here as well. Mountain View High School, are you here somewhere? I know that you went through a little bit of a chapter. You know, they were trying to kick you off campus and all that, but I heard lots of angry moms fought back against that. And right there. And all I have to say is, don't get in the way of angry moms. In fact, you see Merrick Garland from the Department of Justice issue some letters about that, and we're going to talk about that tonight. But it seems that they tried to kick Turning Point USA out of Mountain View High School, and the moms got involved, and it was quickly instituted after that. And so we won and they lost. So there you go. I want to talk about a couple things, and then we'll do some questions. That's the most fun. I love Idaho. It's a great state. This place is awesome. And we're going to talk about some of the issues actually facing Idaho and kind of the decisions I think that Idaho needs to make, quite honestly, because this is one of the most conservative states in the country, allegedly. And I say allegedly, the people are super conservative. And even the people that call themselves liberals here are like avid right-wingers in parts of California. But you guys deserve better than some of the things that have been happening here, quite honestly. And when I start to see that nurses are being fired because they don't want to take the vaccine. In fact, I saw today that there were nurses flying in from California to replace the unvaccinated nurses here in Idaho. I say, where's the leadership in this state saying that we are going to put our own citizens first? So we're going to talk about that. But first, let's take a step back. Why the tour's name is Exposing Critical Racism Theory, and we have that for a reason. CRT is everywhere, and thankfully your state made the decision to ban critical race theory in the classroom, which was a good move. But many of you know it's still there, and teachers are circumventing it. And it's not just a matter of CRT, it's this entire idea of the diversity industrial complex and this mindset that we have to try to challenge American history, the American ethos, and the American promise. And so critical race theory is, I'm happy to dive into that in question and answer. We had somebody, I think in Vermont, ask me, I know you should go see my visit to Vermont, it was comical. For them, it was actually a lot of fun for us. And this young lady asked, she said, can you explain critical race theory? And we did, because she doesn't actually think that we know what it is. But put very simply, it is an effort to try to organize people based on the color of their skin, not based on their actions or their actual worth of their soul or their spirit. And put very simply, this is racism. This is the very same thing I was raised to believe was evil and was wrong and was immoral. And it's here in Idaho. And it's not just, and even though it's been outlawed, and thankfully it has been outlawed in some sense, but if they're teaching white privilege in your child's school or at your university, this is a problem. If they're teaching that diversity is our strength, we'll talk about why that is a misnomer. It's a Trojan horse and trying to actually make people care about skin color when it's a completely irrelevant characteristic. In fact, I couldn't care less about someone's skin color. I care about your decisions, your character, your soul, and your spirit, not what you look like or the melanin content in your skin. In fact, it's evil to organize people based on the color of someone's skin. And we got past that in our country, and they seemingly want to bring that back. And so And I'm gonna prove to you tonight, and we're gonna go through in great detail how these ideas are actually going to be a threat against the American way of life and how it's playing into our greatest enemy's hands, China. We're gonna talk about China tonight. I actually haven't talked about it yet on our tour. We've kind of danced around what's happening, but America's willingness to kind of embrace the Chinese Communist Party, and you kind of look at a contrast of what America has been doing versus what China has been doing. It needs to be a wake-up call for every single American because they have a plan, they are implementing it, and they're ahead of schedule to take over the West. But very simply, CRT, diversity industrial complex, whatever you want to call it, it pushes against the core promise of what it means to be an American. You can either say, we want America to have an emphasis on things you can change or things you cannot change. You cannot change your skin color. You can change how you act. You can change the decisions you make. And what CRT does, diversity industrial complex, diversity, equity, inclusion, what it does is says, you know what, the most important thing is who your parents were. The most important thing is how you look. And this is a disempowering mindset for a lot of people that say, wait a second, you're trying to say that I need to apologize for something I didn't do, just how you look, and that's exactly what they're trying to do. Now, some people say, Charlie, it's an over-exaggeration, it's not being taught in our schools. Western Washington University. You guys have heard of Western Washington University? What if I told you they have black-only dormitories? That at 75 schools across America, they have black-only graduation ceremonies. Black-only graduation ceremonies. At Columbia University, they have graduation ceremonies where they will graduate students based on the color of their skin, where they'll say white people are not allowed to come into this specific graduation ceremony. United Airlines has just announced that they are now going to be hiring pilots based on the color of someone's skin, not on the competency level. That they want at least half of their new pilots to be black pilots. Now, I don't know about you. I couldn't care less about the color of the skin of the airline pilot when I board an airplane. I want to make sure they could take off and that they can land the airplane. And this shows that diversity is now becoming more important than competency. And this is dangerous for all people. And I'm all for people of all different skin colors and backgrounds becoming airline pilots. But I don't want all of a sudden the lowering of standards when you're trying to do something where the margin for error is either you're going to land the plane or you're not going to land the plane. And here's how you know the fraud that is CRT and this diversity push in our country. That when you go and see a doctor, I'm sure you want the best doctor. Not a doctor that fits some sort of racially hiring box. You know, well, I'm sorry to announce that your doctor, they don't know what they're doing. It's kind of like that advertisement, like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, but I did say it at Holiday Inn Express last night. It's like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing, but look, I'm a lesbian, black doctor, and we're going to figure this out. Like, oh, really? Where'd you go to medical school? It doesn't matter. I checked the box. Therefore, you're safer, and diversity is our strength. Shut up, bigot. Like, oh, okay, actually, no. I have to have a gallbladder surgery done, and, like, that doesn't exactly make me, more comfortable. And this is a very serious problem. And as we kind of continually have this carousel of insulting people based on the color of their skin and this entire issue, we're going to have many issues surrounding. And I use this intentionally. CRT is a virus. It's a virus. And it is embedded in the American way of life right now. And one of the major differences, I'm going to talk about vaccines tonight. I haven't talked about it much on our campus tour. If you listen to my radio show or my podcast, we're one of the few conservative radio shows and podcasts that has been unafraid to actually talk about the vaccine and talk about this. Isn't it interesting how few conservatives in media have talked about this lately? They just are kind of running to the hills and they don't want to talk about it. I think they're doing you a disservice when that's the case. No one should be vaccinated against their will. Let me say that again. No one should be vaccinated against their will. But unlike the Fauci virus, the critical race theory virus. Let me just talk about Fauci. Is this guy a sadist or what? I mean, no, seriously, he is a sick, I was going to say sick puppy, but it's too soon. And he is a sick dude. No, seriously. He's a disgusting person. I mean, I don't want to live in a country where the public health official is like torturing beagles. Like that's goodbye is how it should be treated. And I love dogs, and I think that dogs are like a gift, honestly, to humanity. I really believe that. I grew up with cats. I'm more of a dog person. And I'm not like anti-cat. I'm just pro-dog. And so, no, I mean, you want to get an audience animated, you start taking sides on that. My goodness. I don't. I just enjoy dogs more. But I don't know if you guys, did everyone see the story with Fauci? Maybe not. Comes out, Fauci in Tunisia. I mean, this is stuff like Bond villains do, by the way, not like people that run the CDC. You'd think like this is like halfway through, you know, Casino Royale of the guy that James Bond is trying to like stop from terminating the world. And he's like in Tunisia with an eye patch, you know, like speaking some sort of foreign language, like torturing beagles. Like, that's not what we expect out of our public health officials, right? It's something that Hollywood would mimic, like, oh, that would never happen here. But no, Fauci literally takes taxpayer dollars and funds these studies where they put beagles, I kid you not, it's a real thing. They have their head in a net and they put insects in there that eat the dog alive, and they somehow study that as if that's something that's going to tell you how to actually, it's going to save your own human, like, our like medical advancement for humans. Like, no, exactly, that's kind of really weird and awful. And even if there was an upside, I consider that to be disgusting and it shouldn't happen. But that's like that's one of the many elements of why I think Fauci is a sadist and an awful person. And he should be in prison. He's lied in front of Congress. What he's done to the American people is awful. Fauci should be in prison, no question. And so anyway, I got on a side note on that. That really animated me, honestly. I'm like, it takes a really dark person to torture beagles. I'm sorry, it just does. It's like you're a sick person. And it's the same sort of people that work at Planned Parenthood, quite honestly, that would be willing to terminate human lives. Same sort of person, truly. And so it's a virus, but unlike the Fauci virus, after you get exposed to it, you don't get herd immunity or natural immunity to CRT. You actually have to fight it. You have to eradicate it. And look, our country right now is in a very fragile position. I think we can all agree with that, right? Southern border's wide open. There's a caravan coming. Their inflation is real. Biden finally got a boat parade outside of the Long Beach port. Not the same sort of boat parade. Much different, actually. And what else? We gave $85 billion to the Taliban. I mean, it's just like every single thing. Like, let's go, Brandon. That's all I have to say about that. And so, no, I mean that. I hope he wins the next NASCAR competition, and all of them. He's a great guy. Let's go, Brandon. Not sarcastically. Terrific person. But this is the worst time, and let's just think about this objectively. Even if you're a big CRT fan here tonight, I would love to talk to you about that. This is the worst time to be experimenting with super fringe academic theories. Like, it'd be one thing if unemployment was record low and we could stock our shelves and we didn't give $85 billion to the Taliban and we didn't have 2 million people illegally enter into society and like everything was great and we were kind of in the Pax Romana period, which means the time of prosperity. We're in a super fragile position right now, incredibly. And a misstep could mean our entire country shatters. And now the people in charge are like, okay, now let's go implement some fringe radical academic theory that destroys the promise of the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, human equality, and what it means to be an American. And we should say, no, first of all, it's an awful idea, it's immoral, it's evil. And do you see what's happening around you? Like, the country is in the most vulnerable position I have seen in my entire life, bar none. Whether it be the amount of debt or wide open borders. China just doing whatever they want to do, by the way. They could take Taiwan, they could have an embassy in Kabul, and this is the time that our rulers and our leaders are like, okay, now we're going to completely change the way that we teach values to our children. It should be a zero tolerance policy. We just say, right now, we need the opposite of this kind of reflection of who we are racially. Like, no, we need strong people right now, actually, because we're about to go through really turbulent and, dare I say, uncertain times. The last thing we need is a time for like, well, let's explore what it really means to be white in America. Like, really? You know what? No. We need strong people because we're about to go through something that I don't think any of us has lived through in our lifetime unless you lived through a period of World War II. I'm not saying we're going to World War. I'm not saying that. But this idea that and there's this great expression by Eric Weinstein, who's terrific. I disagree with him a lot, but it's the ego, right? It's the embedded growth obligation. That things are just going to keep on getting better because we're Americans. That's not true. That we are going to be up against an inflation crisis, a supply shock crisis. Crime is up 30%. Let's just add that to the list, right? Crime is up 30% since last year. And this is the time that we're supposed to reorganize all of American society. And I said this in Minnesota, and I'll say it again because it's worth repeating. How did we get here? Why are we naming our tour this? We're naming our tour this because regardless of your political affiliation, we could all hopefully build a consensus and agree this is a terrible and awful idea. But this all kind of started after Floydapalooza of the summer of 2020, when we decided to be a good idea just to kind of march into the streets and just burning every single American business. Oh, don't worry, no. They're doing it because they love George Floyd. That flat screen TV, they're doing it as a way because they no, excuse me. I'm not that stupid, and stop treating me that way, okay? This is crime. These people are rioters. These people should have been arrested. And then all of a sudden we have this anarcho-tyranny where the $2 billion of damages that was done to our country after last summer, most people don't get prosecuted for that. But the Department of Justice comes out and they write a letter saying that the real threat is moms and dads showing up to school board meetings and complaining because they don't like the CRT or the pornographic curriculum that's being taught to their 6-year-old. And so it's more important than ever that we as Americans recognize and realize that not only do we need to speak out, but running for school board meetings, running for city council meetings, and basically all we have left is you. And this is not a depressing point, by the way. It's actually rather uplifting and liberating. But every major institution you have trusted to self-correct the trajectory of America has largely failed us. The media, academia, corporations. So now it's like, all right, every organization that was supposed to be doing what they were supposed to be doing while I was building my business and while I was building my family has basically betrayed us. It's now on us. I'm going to show up to the school board meeting. I'm going to show up to the local town hall for my representative. I'm going to run for political office. And this is the sort of mindset that needs to start to set in, which is no more spectator conservatism. No more watching from afar and just hoping it gets better. And I'll give you a great example of this. People say, well, Charlie, what's one way that one thing that we can improve upon? I can't stand the term cancel culture. I don't know about you. It drives me nuts. I can't stand it. But it's true. It's a real thing. But all of us participate in cancel culture, whether we know it or not, in two ways. We shut ourselves up, or we're okay when all of a sudden someone we know or someone in our circle gets canceled because of a racist text message that gets resurrected, and we all sit idly by because we don't want the sword of Damocles to be dropped on us. Let's start with the first thing. Every single person needs to be the same person in public that they are in private, starting tonight. Every single person here tonight can no longer shut themselves up because of the tyranny, the mockery, the threats, or the ridicule that might come your way because you might get discovered to be a conservative. We need to say, you know what? You might fire me. You might no longer be my friend. I don't care. This is what I believe. It's that simple. I don't care. And we allow our decency to turn into apathy and silence. We don't want to be, disorderly. We don't want to offend people. Well, I could tell you right now that the tyranny of self-censorship is a much bigger threat than even the censorship of tech companies and other people shutting us up. The threat of people shutting themselves, like, I'm going to shut up me, big problem. And it's happening a lot. The second one, and I'll just use this one example, and I don't even like him that much. I think he's really annoying, but John Gruden. I've never been a John Gruden fan. He kind of looks like Chucky, and it's like a whole different thing, okay? And that's not why I don't like him. I always think he's kind of arrogant, okay? I'm a big football fan. At least I used to be. The NFL's gone totally woke, and I hope they go broke because of it. I still watch college football. And by the way, I have a solution for all of you in Idaho. You're going to love it. Are you guys happy with the current football coach at Boise State? Yes or no? Sorry, yeah. All right, then I got a solution for you. So John Gruden gets fired from the Las Vegas Raiders because he said some insensitive things, transphobic things, whatever that means anymore, even though he has a gay defensive end that played for him for the Las Vegas Raiders, and he was super popular. They said, oh, he's racist, even though every black player who's ever played for John Gruden said he's the greatest guy I've ever played for. They love him. And yet he gets fired because of an examination of 10-year-old emails because they say, oh, no, we're going to be the moral police. We're going to get rid of him. So first of all, we as Americans shouldn't have tolerated this. But wait a second. John Gruden's emails get more scrutiny than Hunter Biden and Fauci's emails. Like, that's really screwed up. That's a big problem. Is that John Gruden has to be he comes under greater scrutiny for that. And so the way we should handle that is that conservative states, like Boise State, they should go hire John Gruden as the next football coach at Boise State University. Like, that's the way we should handle that. Now, maybe you like your coach and maybe he's terrific, whatever. I don't know. All I know is that Boise State beat Oklahoma in the 2006 Fiesta Bowl, and that was beautiful, and I loved it. 3 overtimes. It was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. It was, truly. 43-42, if I'm not mistaken, right? It was one of the greatest things ever. I remember being, how old was I in 2000? I was like 12 years old. And, no, I'm not kidding. I remember staying up at night. Kellen Moore wasn't quarterback back then, was he? Was he? No, he wasn't until later. Who was that? That's right. And so Kellen Moore came later, who I think was one of the great college quarterbacks of all time. Let me just say a Boise State thing. I can never see the ball when I watch you guys on cable television, okay? It's a big problem. The blue screen is very hard to watch on cable TV, but I love it. What I love about it is, you know what, we're unique. We need to kind of show that we're different, and we're going to make our field blue. I kind of like it. It's kind of this idea of self-sovereignty and state sovereignty. We'll get to that in a second. No, I mean that. And so maybe you guys love your coach, but whatever. The point is, if Idaho or Montana or whatever, they were serious about pushing back against cancel culture, what a death blow to the regime of political correctness cancel culture if John Gruden was able to land a job at a respectful, football program. I'm not saying this sarcastically, by the way. I mean it totally seriously. Is that you give them power, and we're like, oh, we don't want John Gruden because he sent an email we don't like. Like, no, we know he's a decent guy. Every person who ever played for him is great. He's also a brilliant football mind. Okay, he's kind of a jerk. But the point is that, are we going to continue to act as if this is okay? Because I guarantee you, every single person in this room, if I went through your private text messages and emails over the last 10 years, there'd be a lot of people losing their jobs tonight. And so the question is, are we going to be okay with that? The question is, do we just say, oh, it's not me, therefore John Gruden can get cast aside? It's not just about John Gruden. I could go through the list of people, right? And that's where all of a sudden we as conservatives have to disempower the other side and say that we're not supporting what they said, but we are going to look at the totality of the human being. That if what someone says in a private email communication as a football coach, by the way, he was insulting Obama. I don't know if you guys knew that or not in the emails. If we're going to be okay with that and like, oh, well, it's not me, we all know how that works. We know that cultural tyranny comes your way, so all of us can participate in rejecting that kind of cancel culture. And this whole idea of apologizing, I got so upset at John Gruden over this, where John Gruden comes out and he apologizes for all the people that he offended. And this is a simple principle. If you've done something wrong, then you should apologize for it. If you haven't done something wrong and you think that it's being misinterpreted of who you are and what you've done, then who are you apologizing to? Like, what are you doing groveling, acting as if this is going to get you your job back? And that gives them power. Now, again, if it came out that John Gruden was kind of organizing KKK meetings in Oakland and was like kind of writing the, secret biography of David Duke, then like that's something you should apologize for. Like, that's really weird, and you probably do harbor racial resentment. But no, if you send an email that's off color and not exactly something that people want, like, oh, I deeply apologize for all I've offended. I'm going to go through a lot of soul searching of who I am, and I'm going to probably, like some stupid consultant wrote that. It's coming for all of you next, and you know it. And some of you are already living it. Some of you are working for companies right now in Boise or whatever that might all of a sudden require you to conform to this kind of corporate orthodoxy that is against your viewpoints. And so let me segue now. So I kind of talk about cancel culture. We'll do this for 10 or 15 more minutes, and we'll do some questions. Okay, Idaho. Amazing state. Awesome people. You guys need better politicians. You guys, I'm telling you what. I'm not going to name any names. I don't do that. But I'm telling you that this country's fallen apart, and there's no reason why Ron DeSantis is doing what he's doing courageously. And in Idaho, it seems like always playing catch up, or not being as bold as some other states that are more 50-50. It doesn't make any sense to me. And so, let me give you a fair warning. You guys have seen the population increase over the last 10 years. 19% population increase. I won't say the restaurant name, but I went to a certain restaurant in downtown Boise. I thought I was in Boulder, Colorado, seriously. And just, this state will turn. This state can turn. And especially when you have weak-kneed politicians that don't lead and instead are following whatever the conventional wisdom of the day is. And so how do you handle the people from Washington Now, if it was in Coeur d'Alene, this would be very... Anyone from Coeur d'Alene here? Anyone drive down? Anyone? Wow, that's a long drive. Thank you. A couple people from Coeur d'Alene. I love Coeur d'Alene, by the way. It's awesome. That place is changing, too. My goodness. They're coming in at record numbers. But right there, Spokane, Coeur d'Alene, obviously two different places, you know, worldviews, to say the least. And so how do you handle this? Do you all of a sudden try to pander to the people that are coming to Boise and that are like, oh, let's legalize weed and let's, you know, have CRT in our schools and we need transgender bathrooms? Like, no, actually, we're going to say there's plenty of other Mountain West towns like Missoula or Denver that might fit you better. Like Boise and Idaho is going to remain a conservative place, and we're going to pass laws and measures that reflect our viewpoints. And here's the thing, is that if they want to kind of just be just lost in this sea of confusing liberals, like Portland's a great place for them, okay? Like, but you should make no apology at saying, like, maybe your values aren't welcome here. Now, some people are like, oh, well, that's not very welcoming. Yeah, the people that are trying to mandate children with vaccines, I don't want to live in the same city as them. I don't want them on the city council. The people that are trying to take your guns away, you're trying to tell me that we should elect them to city council? Are you kidding me? And so how do you treat that? You lead. You say, this is the type of state we want to live in. And states like Florida, and Montana, by the way, the governor of Montana is Greg Gianforte. He's doing a phenomenal job. And all of a sudden you see liberals like posting on social media, that's it. I bought a house in Bozeman. I'm out. I'm going back to San Francisco. Perfect. It's working. And look, and this is the most obvious point, and all of you need to repeat this every single day. You need bumper stickers. You need a campaign. You just need to ask, why did you move here? You just need to keep on asking people that question. Why did you move from Seattle? Oh, because Seattle's too expensive and crime and homelessness. Yeah, you moved here because we've been conservative for the last 60, 70, 80 years, and we've kept taxes low, and we respect your constitutional rights, and now you want to come and kind of disrupt this? Like, no, that's not the way this works. You don't get to be some sort of interstate imperialist from King County, Washington, because you work for Google and they let you, or Microsoft, and they let you like work from home. So I go buy a house cash in Eagle or Meridian because the property values are so low because you haven't messed up this place yet. Be like, oh no, let me tell you how we do things at Microsoft. Like, no, go back, actually. We don't want you here. And it should be that simple. And so Idaho is an opportunity to lead. And it's going to take people that are willing and necessary to do that. You guys can make your own decisions. I'm not endorsing people. You guys, I'm not even going to name anyone by name. I don't do that. I don't live here. But here's what I do know. The people of Idaho that I meet with and I talk to are some of the most America-loving, God-fearing, courageous people in the entire country. And I look at this and I say, if the national federal project is going to continue to fall apart, which it is falling apart right now, it's going to take states that are willing to be leaders. It's going to take states that are going to say, okay, Joe Biden, you have violated the federal contract. Like all of a sudden, you're letting the southern border remain wide open. You are deploying national resources to try to enforce a vaccine mandate against private businesses. Idaho is going to take care of Idaho. And guess what? People would embrace that in record numbers in this state. Is that people move here, except, you know, the King County Zoom people, whatever. It's because they want a safe haven for freedom. But I'm starting to see a bubbling up of other ideologies here in the state that are not being confronted. Of kind of like, well, you know, we don't want to upset the apple cart. Every single governor across America, I could tell you this, I visited every state in the last 2 years, and I know this intimately. Every governor that has been moderate or every legislature that has kind of pandered, they're losing their state to the radical left. The ones that are more popular than ever, the ones that are all of a sudden seeing increases, are the ones that stand up against that, and they say to their base, let's expand our numbers. Here's why we believe what we believe, and here's what we are doing. That is the path forward. The lie of being an agreeable moderate, especially like in a state like Idaho, will lose you your state. It will lose you your state quickly. And you're like, oh, we'll never lose Idaho. I'm sure you've seen some changes in this valley the last couple years, and it's happening at an increasing rate. And so, let me also say, just from this idea of national sovereignty, let me make this very clear. The states have created the federal government. The federal government did not create the states. And so any powers that are not explicitly given to the federal bureaucracy or given to the federal, the federal project, that's Idaho's issue. And Idaho needs to reassert its leadership as a federal system, which is states' rights matter, everybody. And here's the amazing thing, is that Idaho's best days are just beginning as soon as it embraces this. Is that all of a sudden you are going to see more people that agree with your value system, which is happening, but all of a sudden it will kind of have this natural separation, move here to Idaho than ever before. And again, it's because Idaho 20 years ago was not something where a lot of people from Seattle or Portland or San Francisco ever thought of moving here. But as soon as their towns and their cities start collapsing, they want to come into your place. Like, no, that's something we have to say. This is how we do things here. And it's going to take some courage. Guess what? The newspaper might write bad articles about you, okay? You might have some people say some mean things about you. George S. Patton said it best: lead, follow, or get out of the way. And that needs to be the ethos of Idaho conservatives from this point forward. Okay. Let me just say one more thing about the Department of Justice, National School Board Association. I'm going to talk about China, then we'll do some questions. What happened so you guys probably all saw this story. Let me just kind of go through this with you. As murders are up 30% nationwide, violent crime is up, rapes are up, arson is up. We are allowing illegals come across the entire southern border. We see on a Philadelphia train, after they become a sanctuary city, we saw an illegal alien rape a woman while other people watched and did nothing and took out their phones and filmed it. We have a moral and legal decay. You know what's amazing is I say that at events the last week, and people still haven't heard that story. You know how incredible that is? This should have been the #1 news story in the country for 3 weeks. Let me just say that again. For 40 minutes, 24 stops on a train in Philadelphia, a woman was raped by an illegal foreign national, a non-American, someone who was here illegally, who broke our laws, should have been deported, raped the woman for 40 minutes, and everyone watched and did nothing and took out their phones and filmed it for the entire time. While this is happening, while the southern border remains wide open, the Attorney General of the United States, what's his biggest priority? Is pandering to the National School Board Association of America, that comes out and says moms and dads that are showing up to school board meetings, we need to use the Patriot Act against them. They are domestic terrorists, that we need to use the Federal Bureau of Investigation. That was in the National School Board Association letter. It was sent to the Attorney General of the United States. Instead of throwing that letter into the waste bin where it deserved, the Attorney General of the United States wrote a memo saying, you're right. We are going to use the Patriot Act. We're going to use the Department of Justice. We're going to use the FBI to go after moms and dads who are complaining about curriculum that's being taught in their school board across the country. I'm happy to say I think they're even realizing the detrimental mistake they made with this. And what happened is so encouraging, and this is a good note for all of you. All of a sudden, after the Attorney General said we're going to criminalize moms and dads that show up at school boards, more people showed up at school boards after that letter than ever before. Is that we are now seeing, all of a sudden people say, okay, whatever, Attorney General Merrick Garland. Meanwhile, his family is heavily tied to Panorama, which is a critical race theory education publishing company. So he's making money off of the actual CRT that parents are protesting. Is that we now see a conservative movement that say, you know what? You could say whatever you want about corporate tax policy. I'm not going to allow you to indoctrinate my child, mask my child against my will or their will. I'm not going to allow the vaccines to keep on coming through. And this is an issue that I'm not going to negotiate on. They don't know how to deal with you, everybody. And we are becoming a movement that is growing stronger the more they're throwing at us. There's a term for this called anti-fragile, that the more they attack you, the stronger we become. And so we look at this, and then if you saw what happened on Friday night, the National School Board Association came out, and they said, we apologize for sending that letter. We didn't actually mean it. You're not domestic terrorists. Now, yeah, thanks, exactly, great. Meanwhile, the FBI still has their memo out, like, oh, okay. By the way, everyone here is probably, getting listened to by the NSA, like, hi, how you doing? Good to hear you. See ya. Craven losers that got nothing better to do. And I'm going to segue how this is actually making America more dangerous, because it is. So we have the National School Board Association that comes out and say, we're sorry for this letter. Now, are they really sorry for the letter, or are they regretting the backlash that has ensued? Those are two totally different things. They're not sorry for what they said. They do believe you are a domestic terrorist. They believe that they should use the Department of Justice against moms and dads. What they are worried about is that they have accidentally created a political movement that is changing the country for the better as we know it. And they do not know what to do about it. Is that in Virginia, all of a sudden you have the Republican up multiple points against Terry McAuliffe. You are seeing the entire American political dynamic put upside down because education is now the #1 issue in the country. And they are losing that issue dramatically. Meanwhile, homeschooling population has doubled in America the last 18 months, which is a phenomenal sign. And so when you put all these things together, you start to recognize and realize that the momentum is truly behind what we are trying to do. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of problems in the country. I went through many of them. But there is, for the first time in 10 years that I've been doing this, a authentic and bottom-up, non-coordinated response to all the different measures of this regime that we have seen. And they are so worried that they write a letter, use the FBI and Patriot Act, and then retract the letter. They're so confused they don't know what to do about it because they have all of a sudden created something they've never seen before. You guys remember the Tea Party movement in 2010? This is much bigger than the Tea Party movement was in 2010, I can tell you that. And so let me close with China because this is really important, which is, okay, so China's our greatest enemy. They're not a rival. They're not an adversary. They're an enemy of the United States, okay? And any one of your leaders that are not willing to say that word enemy, you got to find new leaders. They want us dead. They are a soulless, godless regime that has well over 1 billion people. And so CRT is only one element, though, in this new, and I've just used this as like Wokistan type worldview that they're trying to implement, right? Where you saw Jen Psaki, who is the press secretary of the United States. Yeah, I know it's Psaki, okay? Jen Psaki, okay? Where she comes out and I think it was Peter Doocy, who's the only person who asked questions in that entire place. Meanwhile, the other press secretary, like, so what kind of ice cream did Joe Biden have last night? Like, these are the questions they get. And so, where they ask her, they say, oh, what do you have to say about, China that now has a hypersonic missile that goes 6 times the speed of sound, and they could put atomic and nuclear weapons on it, and they can launch it from space. And she's like, oh, we welcome competition to the space. That's what she said. Like, oh, yeah, as if it's kind of like, as if it's the New York Marathon. Like, the more people running, the better. Like, we'll all get faster, right? It's all great. But don't worry, everybody. They released our true secret weapon a couple days before that. Did you know we have a transgender 4-star rear admiral? That's our secret weapon. And you know what? And we should make fun of it, because mockery, ridicule, and laughter is all we have left, or else you just cry all the time, which is honestly really depressing. I'm not going to act like this is normal. And you shouldn't either. Like, no, this is really weird that it's weird and it's dangerous and it's wrong, and you can call me whatever you want, transphobic or whatever. No, okay? Our country is now becoming at threat of the Chinese hypersonic missile that goes 6 times the speed of sound. In China, they have banned mobile technology for young children to consume. They literally no longer allow sissy men on television. They're getting ready for an invasion of Taiwan. And then I have to sit through Jen Psaki be like, it's a competitor. And by the way, let's just all be so proud that we have a man who thinks he's a woman who's the new rear admiral of the Navy. Like, no, that's actually not okay. And I'm not going to act as if this weird mind control you have over us is somehow tolerable. This is wrong, and it needs to change. And people need to say something about this, because it's as if everyone watches this, and if you're like me, you're like, whoa. Like, you literally say, is this a joke, right? And I think deep down, they actually believe that our strength in warfare is going to be a bunch of men who think they're women, like running F-35 bombing campaigns. And like, when it comes down to warfare, yeah, masculinity really matters, okay? And the media hates when I say this. And the war on men is going to make China lick their chops for an inevitable position where they either control us as a colony of the Chinese Communist Party, or they're able to invade us or any of our proxies and our allies. And, Winston Churchill, the greatest man to live in the 20th century, was, in a lot of different ways, he understood this. And the only thing China understands, they don't understand a better argument. They look at this and they're just like, is this really what America has become? And this is a fundamental problem with the West, isn't it? Which is that we live under this tyranny of political correctness right now, and all of us are afraid of losing our jobs, and we're afraid of being called bigots and all this. And even your elected officials send to Washington, they write letters. Like, this should be a zero tolerance policy. China right now is well on their way to dominating the Western world. If you don't believe me, talk to anyone worth their salt in the military. Anyone. They will tell you that the technology they're embracing, the training that they're employing, it's a very serious threat. Meanwhile, don't worry everybody, the State Department released 3 days ago, International Pronouns Day, published by the United States State Department. I'm not kidding. The entire month of June, they had an LGBT flag flying, but no flags are flying from Kabul anymore because we betrayed our own promises in Afghanistan. 13 Marines are dead because of the incompetency and treason, and I use that word treason, of working with the enemy and betraying our obligations in Afghanistan. And so this is something that just the more you say it out loud, I've been very surprised though, so many people act as if like, oh yeah, it's just kind of another chapter in this. It's making America a more dangerous place, everybody. And this is a byproduct of these bad ideas, is that when you destroy Western norms, all of a sudden you're like, oh wow, maybe we do kind of want people that are willing to kill others and have the capacity to go to war, fighting for us in a combat theater. Like maybe that's like a minor detail for us. And so, but CRT is alongside these other elements of things you're not supposed to talk about. You're supposed to sit down and you're submit. And it kind of goes to this fundamental question of the only way this regime falls apart is when we start to challenge it at every single turn. Yes, we must make fun of it. Yes, we must say why this is untrue, why this makes no sense. And for the parents and the adults out here, I'm sure a lot of you say, I never thought I'd see America in the place that it's in. One of the reasons, and I say this so lovingly, is because we've been way too polite with this garbage for way too long. We have put up with this crap for way too long, everybody. Oh, I'm afraid of being called these names and all this. This is our country, what they're doing this to. And I'm not saying you have to have the heart to offend or have the heart to try to, make somebody's day worse or whatever. But excuse me when I no longer walk on eggshells. When I have to tolerate the destruction and the deliberate decay of the United States of America. So let me tie all this together. Idaho. The nation is looking at states like Idaho. New York is. Rhode Island is. I was just in Vermont. Oregon and Washington is. They wish they could live here. A lot of them are moving here. And it's long past time that you get leaders, you get citizenry, and organizations that say, this is what we believe, this is why we believe it, we want a country that I can recognize around these core principles and promises. We are going to have courage and conviction and clarity when espousing it, and we're going to make Idaho the future of the nation and exempt it from all this woke tyranny, critical race theory, garbage nonsense we've been living under. And that's my story, and I'm sticking with it. Thank you, guys. Let's get some questions. Okay, microphone for questions there. And don't be shy, line up. Questions, not statements or declarations of your interpretation of the Magna Carta, as much as I'd love to hear that. So keep it as short as possible. If you are a student, you get to cut in line. And if you disagree, you get to cut the students in line. Okay, let's go to the proof. And let me just say this. This is obviously a majority conservative audience. So if someone who is disagreeing or is a liberal or is a moderate comes and asks a question, give them the respect that the liberals never give us, and let them ask their question, okay?
How's it going, Charlie? Thanks for coming out here. I'm a campus conservative like you, all right? Campus conservatives. And I wanted to ask you about what you said a few weeks ago on your show. I don't remember the precise date. You talked about that the corporate media won't talk about the demographic shifts in this country, that this country once was composed predominantly of people of European heritage. Why do you think that the corporate media won't talk about that? And why are people like Joe Biden trying to change that demographic?
Yeah, sorry for the feedback. Thank you for being here. One of the most amazing clips that I encourage all of you to look at is the Castro brothers from Texas on Face the Nation 2014-2015. Where they say it's just a matter of time before Texas turns because of the overwhelming demographics and the open border policies on the southern border. Joe Biden in 2017 said basically the exact same thing, saying that it's just a matter of time before the demographics changes actually benefit them politically. Well, I think the media is afraid to talk about this rationally and reasonably because they don't want to violate the central piety that's at the core of America right now. So Friedrich Nietzsche, who got a lot wrong, but he got some things right. Friedrich Nietzsche used to say that every nation has a central piety of something you're not allowed to make fun of, right? So you can make fun of white Christians all day long, right? You can make fun of, and you could go look at The Simpsons or Family Guy. Who are they always making fun of? They're making fun of straight men who are loyal to their wives and raise children. You notice that? That the laughing stock of America in media has been the idea of raising your children. And that we kind of just have allowed this to happen. Like, oh, the bumbling fool archetype was always the suburban dad, right? Well, the thing you're not allowed to say, or the thing that you're not even allowed to talk about, is the idea the other side is openly saying that demographics is going to be used as a tool to politically reshape the country. And I think they're afraid to talk about it because they don't want to be called a racist, to be perfectly honest. And there's obviously a way to talk about this just using their own words and saying it out loud. And yes, there's a reason why Joe Biden didn't want to stop the Haitians from coming across the southern border. And there's a reason why he wants the caravan to come into the country, and it has nothing to do with race. Dare I say it has a lot to do with the culture and also the income level of people that are coming into the country. So for example, you all of a sudden start to say, we're going to have 2 million illegal people come into America just this year. 2 million people. Well, the left, they have entire social organizations that go door to door, that go person to person, and they are willing to sign them up for government benefits. They are willing to try and get them on the dole, and they are willing to try to turn them into future voters or political I don't want to say political hostages, but that's a pretty fair way to say it, quite honestly. And so, look, why I can only conjecture why the media is afraid to say it. Tucker Carlson's willing to talk about it openly, who I think has a lot of courage, one of the few people on television I think that really gets it right now. But let's be very clear that Joe Biden does not want to keep the borders open because he has a heart as big as the Pacific Ocean, okay? Joe Biden would, and here's the reality of it. Mayorkas, who's the head of the Department of Homeland Security, who's a total joke. What did he say about Cubans? He said, I don't want Cubans to come into America because, he says, because, I don't actually think he said the reason, but he says, if a Cuban comes into America, they'll be deported immediately to Cuba. He doesn't say that about people coming from Mexico, El Salvador, Nicaragua, or Guatemala. And it's because this regime wants as many people as possible that could benefit their political outcomes and their objectives. I'm unafraid to talk about that using their own words. And I think every single one of your leaders needs to start saying that their open southern border porous strategy is a political weapon to try to destroy your vote in Congress and try to weaken your voice. And the only reason we don't talk about it is because you don't want to be called the R word. Well, look, I don't care, and that's the truth of the matter. So thanks for the question. I appreciate it. Are we going two sides or just one? Just one. Okay. If you guys want to form a line there. Sorry. Yes.
So I'm a nursing student at the Christian University. I'm not going to say what, but you guys know, here in town. And I have been faced with religious and medical discrimination, and it has cost me financially and socially, which is a price that I'm willing to pay to defend my rights as a free American. One of my biggest struggles in this fight is finding out that students, even who are paying customers, have no leverage, and that's what I've learned this last summer. Whether it's the vax mandate or being taught that I'm a privileged white female in my theology class, I can't run away from this problem and obviously need to take a stand. How or what is the best way a paying university student can keep faculty and administrators accountable when they're faced with these issues? I'm
gonna guess you go to NNU. Is that right? Or?
I mean, I'm
guessing.
I still have a semester to finish, so I'm
But just for all the adults and people out there, you should know this is what's happening in Idaho, right? That young ladies are being taught. You're what? Privileged white Christian conservative what?
In my theology class.
In your theology class.
Yes.
Yeah. That should tell you everything you need to know about NNU. You didn't say it was NNU, I'm just inferring it. And so, what do? Well, look, you got one semester left. I think you can outlast them. But I'm gonna be honest with everyone in this room. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. We don't do hopium at Turning Point USA, which is hope and opium mixed together. Feels good, but it's really bad for you. Like, oh, Donald Trump's going to be president in August. No, he's not. Stop reading those websites. It's a bunch of garbage. Okay, seriously. And, you know what I'm talking about, okay? That stuff's not true. Trust the plan. There is no plan, okay? Please. And so, no, seriously. And so, there's a price to be paid. Every person here that's a young person that says, I want to be a campus conservative, you will lose friends, You will be graded differently. Let me ask this question. Raise your hand if you're a student and you've been graded differently in the state of Idaho because of your conservative beliefs. Yeah, that should be a zero tolerance. Why is your governor putting up with this? That's a good question, isn't it? Why is your state leadership putting up with this? That's interesting. And I'll let you guys figure that out, because you guys are citizens of the state and I'm not. So what do you do? Honestly, you're probably at a place where graduating and keep your head down, that could be the logical decision. I would always make the biggest stand and mess I could possibly make at the current time I could, but I'm different. I'll give you an example of where someone who I respect, Ben Shapiro, and I fundamentally disagree. So Ben Shapiro says, lie your way through college, right? Get the grade you want to get, and then graduate and use the credentials against them. I don't think grades matter nearly as much as character. I think character matters a lot more than grades. And and some parents they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe you should just, get through it. I would rather have a generation and a nation of courageous C students than a bunch of A students that have never stood for anything and will never stand for anything. So you have a decision to make. And I never give specific advice. I don't do that because I don't know everything you put into it. Maybe you're working your way through college. Maybe you're right maybe you want to go into a program after college, and maybe that might be the rational decision for you. What I am saying, though, is the younger you take a stand for these ideas and these principles, the more blessed you will be, the stronger you will become, and the more clearly you will see things. And here's the most important thing, everybody, the less they will control you. We live in a society where everybody seems to be controlled by something. I'm afraid of losing my job. I'm afraid of not graduating, right? I'm afraid of losing my friends. Break free of that. It's the greatest gift I can give you tonight, is to say, I don't care what you're going to call me. You will have a couple weeks of, let's say, purging that needs to get done. There'll be a couple weeks of losing friends, be a couple weeks of realignment, and then after that, you will be at a place in your life of peace and stability beyond anything you could ever imagine. And so I just want to encourage you, and it does not surprise me, even in a state like Idaho, that this is happening. In fact, I know it's been happening. I've been trying to tell people that for quite some time. I hope some people contact NNU if you have any relationships there, and let them have it, because you deserve a lot better than that. So thank you. Yes.
Hi. Oh, is it going? Okay. Hi, Charlie. I'm a 17-year-old senior at Eagle High School. I'm not yet 18, so I can't vote yet, but I know I can go to the school board and talk to them about issues. My question is, how do you think I should approach them about deciding it's okay to allow my intro to law enforcement teacher teach critical race theory?
Yeah, so what school do you go to again?
Eagle High School.
Eagle High School. And they're teaching CRT?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's against state law, right? But they're doing it anyway? Yeah. So you know what's great about events like this is that parents that have heard me rant and rave about this and think I'm exaggerating, they actually get to hear it from students themselves, so it's actually helpful. That's not your biggest fight. Anyone connected with Eagle High School, you guys should make a big, thing about that teacher is in violation of state law. I don't know what the recourse or measure is in Idaho, but I don't know if the Idaho Attorney General would be looking into that anytime soon. You guys can come up to your own conclusions with that. Yeah, you need to expose it. You need to get as many parents aware of this as possible. You have an intro to law enforcement class in high school? That's interesting. I don't understand why there would be an intro to law enforcement class in high school. Yeah, we don't have enough police officers and we need to honor them. Like, thanks for coming to my class, I guess. So, yeah, I don't quite understand that. So, that's just begging for like wokeism to be bled in, right? An intro to law enforcement. There's really no way that high school doesn't become a woke kind of teaching. Let me just be very clear. So what do you do about it? You got to make the decision whether you want to be a disagreeable, courageous conservative, and I think you should. And I think that you should try to organize around it. You should show up at the school board meetings, record your teacher, right? You should record your teacher. And so let me tell you, and this drives people nuts, so I'm definitely going to say this. So Idaho needs to have a special session, and they need to say that, and not every conservative agrees with this, and some teachers are going to hate it when I say this, but I don't care. So every classroom needs a camera, and teachers need to be on film when they teach kids. Now, let me prove it to you. When I drop my dog off at doggy daycare in Arizona, I can look at my dog on the camera to make sure he's being treated well. And you're trying to tell me you as a parent and a taxpayer don't have the right to check in to make sure your intro to law enforcement teacher is following Idaho state law and is teaching things correctly? There's no reason why Idaho has not passed this into law yet. Every classroom needs a camera. You can have a login. You can never actually go and show student faces if you're worried about student privacy. Every teacher needs to be put on notice for this, though. And by the way, if they're such wonderful teachers, then they're going to be happy that they have an expanded viewership and audience, that they get to teach to the entire community. It's time for us to play offense, and it's disgusting that at Eagle High School this is allowed to happen. Every parent needs to make their voice out there. If you know legislatures, introduce this bill in the next session, demand a special session, which I don't think is going to happen, obviously, because that would probably, what I've been told, is a Herculean effort in the state to get that done. Idaho can lead the way, because you deserve a lot better than that. You as a 17-year-old should not be succumb to this nonsense. Thank you.
Hi, Charlie. So it's almost been a year since the election now. During that time, Trump's legal team filed about 60 lawsuits and lost all of them except for one that had no effect on the outcome of the election. Many of those cases were thrown out by judges appointed by Trump or other Republicans. Just a few weeks ago, the election audit in Arizona reaffirmed Biden's win there. The recounts in Georgia had the same result. So my question is, do you still believe Biden won the election because of voter fraud?
So let me ask you, in the Arizona audit, how many illegal votes did they find in that audit?
I saw like potentially 55,000, but I mean that's...
And how much did Biden win by?
He was like 60,000?
10,000.
Okay, yeah, 10,000.
So
okay.
Maybe the audit did reveal something.
The audit, then why hasn't the election in that state been overturned then?
Well, so
and
there's
also the CEO of that company, Cyber Ninjas. Yeah, he came out and said that his findings are being misrepresented, and he himself has said he doesn't think it should be overturned, and he knows more about it than anyone.
Well, his report said there was anywhere between 55,000 and 70,000 phantom voters. So let me first say this, that there's a difference between an audit and a recount, right? So a recount is putting ballots that already have certain markings in the same tray and calling it a day. An audit is checking voter registration, is checking whether or not the people actually live in the state where they vote, and whether or not these are legitimate and actual ballots. So let me just kind of go a different direction with this. Do you think that there's anything, do you think it's okay that Mark Zuckerberg spent $420 million through the Center for Technology and Civic Life in the way we count ballots and actually hiring poll workers? Do you think there was any, do you think that was legal?
No, I hate Mark Zuckerberg, actually.
Well, I agree. So how about Facebook and Twitter not allowing us to talk about the Hunter Biden story in the entire month of October?
I think people should be able to talk about whatever they want.
Yeah, so it gets to this essence that this was the most interfered with election in American history, and Biden was implemented and not elected. And whether it be from the Zuckerberg money, the mail-in ballot questions, from Georgia, it went from 248,000 mail-in ballots to 1.2 million mail-in ballots. We still have open questions in Fulton County, Cobb County, Gwinnett County. Maricopa did finish their audit. We haven't even audited Coconino County, Pinal County, or Pima County. They're just starting the audit in Michigan. They're just starting the audit in Pennsylvania. And let me just say this. If there was nothing to be found in these audits, why is the media trying to stop them so badly?
I don't think anybody's trying. I don't think the media is trying to.
Well, the Department of Justice tried to intervene and stop the Arizona audit. You might remember Merrick Garland sent a letter saying that you might be in violation of the Civil Rights Act. So I think you're coming at this from a good perspective. But let me tell you this, that we had an unprecedented influx of mail-in ballots going every single direction in states. People got multiple ballots, from signature verification issues to 2 weeks of getting tallies to the late-night vote drops that we all saw, to the $420 million of Zuckerberg money that got planted in, to the actual 25 to 26 counties that Zuckerberg involved himself in through the Center for Technology and Civic Life benefited Biden. from the consent decree that was actually signed in Georgia privately between Brian Kemp, Brad Raffensperger, and Stacey Abrams that made the signature threshold go down from a 95% match to a 60% match. This was an election unlike any other. And I will continue to hold the line and say that we have unanswered questions, and instead of the other side being like, oh, okay, our regime is implemented, you know what they did? They wrote an article for Time magazine by Molly Ball that said the shadow campaign that won the 2020 election. So we now have more questions than ever before. And quite honestly, I think we as conservatives have to ignore the media and get to the bottom of exactly what happened in the 2020 election, which is that we had an election unlike any other. And I refuse to believe at my core that this bumbling fool got 82 million votes. Like, excuse me while I call nonsense on that.
Yeah,
Sorry, can you turn that on?
So, I guess if there was so much fraud and all that, then why did those 60 cases get thrown out, mostly by many Trump-appointed
Many of them were
Republican
poorly
judges?
written
Are they like controlled by the Democrats?
Many of them were
or?
poorly written lawsuits filed at the last minute, and the complaints themselves didn't actually get the essence of the interference in the ballot counting, to the signature issues, to actually how the processes were followed. And let me just say this in closing. The Arizona audit did find that Arizona state law was violated in actually how the election itself was conducted, from the deletion of information to the routers to the servers. And right now, the Arizona Attorney General, Mark Brnovich, is focusing like you wouldn't believe in the actual illegality of how the Arizona election was conducted. I just want to say, I want to thank you for your rational question, but I think all of us know, and millions of people at home know this, that when all of a sudden you have a virus that comes from a laboratory that we funded, we lock down our country, we change our election laws for safety. An oligarch, the fourth richest man in the country, spends $420 million to change our election laws. People get multiple ballots. We lessen our signature threshold issues. There's all these questions from Antrim, Michigan, to Maricopa County, to the leak. Remember in Georgia, the last minute or late night leak, to the stopping of the ballot counting and the resuming of the ballot counting at 3:30 in the morning, to the days that followed where all of a sudden it felt like they were just finding more ballots in every single direction. We look at this and we say, wow, we know they hated Donald Trump, but we did not know, or we were taken by surprise, or we were not ready for what they were willing to do, which is get at the core of what we are as a republic. Violate the laws, spend unprecedented amount of money. And I will say this, that we are not going to lose focus on this, and we are going to name the names and find the criminals that pulled this off in the 2020 election. Thank you for being here tonight.
You ready? Yeah. You're brave. You're brave for what you say, and the fact that you stand up there and say it, and I appreciate it. I think we all appreciate it, actually, because there's not a lot of people that have the balls to do it. But I want to ask you something a little bit out of the ordinary. So, prepare yourself. At this point, we're living under a corporate and medical fascism. This is tyranny. When do we get to use the guns? No, and I'm not, that's not a joke. I'm not saying it like that. I mean, literally, where's the line? How many elections are they going to steal before we kill these people?
So, no, no, hold on. No, stop, hold on. Now, I'm going to denounce that. I'm going to tell you why. Because you're playing into all their plans, and they're trying to make you do this. That's okay. Just hear me out. You started with a compliment, so at least give me a little bit. They are trying to provoke you and everyone here. They are trying to make you do something that will be violent, that will justify a takeover of your freedoms and liberties, the likes of which we have never seen. We are close to have, hold on, we are close to have momentum to be able to get this country back on a trajectory using the peaceful means that we have at us. So to answer your question, and I just think it's, overly blunt, we have to be the ones that do not play into the violent aims and ambitions of the other side. They fear, let me say this very clearly, they fear us holding the line with self-control and discipline taking over school board meetings. They're the ones that are willing to use federal force against us. And I know that people get fired up. We are living under fascism. We are living under this tyranny. But if you think for a second that they're not wanting you to all of a sudden get that next level where they're going to say, okay, we need Patriot Act 2.0. If you think that, Waco is bad, wait till you see what they want to do next. What I'm saying is that we have a very fragile balance right now at our current time where we must exhaust every single peaceful mean possible. I will say this, Idaho has not even started to exercise the peaceful means of state sovereignty against the federal government. Not even close. I'll give you 5 things Idaho could do right now. The governor of Idaho could sign an executive order that says there are no vaccine mandates for private, for public, for anyone. It's not going to happen. He could do that right now. Number 2, the governor of Idaho could come out and he could say, okay, BLM, Bureau of Land Management, EPA, you're out. We're governing our own lands. We're in control of our own territories. You're out of the state of Idaho. Number 3, Idaho could pick and choose through the state legislature which one of the federal laws they think actually apply to the Idaho Constitution. These things will push back against the tyranny you're talking about. A mistake would all of a sudden be getting into physical violent confrontation. You think that this regime has all of a sudden sprung into action? Wait until they get what they want. They want that. Why would we give that to them? Follow-up point?
I just want to know, where's the line?
The line is when we exhaust every single one of our state ability to push back against what's happening. We haven't even started. We have not even started the process of having Idaho or states like Idaho get back to self-government as our founders envisioned. They gave us state sovereignty. You outnumber the liberals like 8-1 here in this state. Why don't we start to use that muscle peacefully through local government, through city council? We haven't even started doing that, my friend. I know you think like, oh, we have, man, not what I've seen from the state capitol here in Idaho. I've seen pandering. I've seen, trying to go to the middle and all this. And so what is the line? Look, man, I think we're at the teetering edge of a regime that knows that good and decent Americans are going to get to the place in the movie network, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore, right? Well, guess what? Know that there's a deeper game at play. Understand the psychological warfare that's being played here. They're trying to animate you. They're trying to get you to do something that then justifies what they actually want to do. So what's the solution? We need to start to demand Idaho to be Idaho, and the federal government can stay out of the state of Idaho for just about everything. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
Hey, Charlie, I just wanted to say thank you for all you do. I listen to your podcast every day, and I love it, so thank you. My name is Josh. I work for a healthcare organization here in the Valley, and I am actually sickened by the lack of care, I think, by the medical professionals, or the ability for them to think out of the box for therapies for COVID. And it just feels like there's so many good therapies out there that work, but they're being completely suppressed by the media and everybody else. And why do you think that is?
So we have been one of the few shows, and thank you for all of you that have subscribed to our podcast, and if you haven't yet, please do that. It helps us out a lot. That have actually talked about azithromycin, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, monoclonal antibodies, aspirin. I cannot believe how so many conservative media people, I won't say any names, have come out and they're like, get vaccinated, get vaccinated. Hold on a second. And they're like, it's a pandemic of the unvaccinated. It's a pandemic of the untreated. It's a pandemic of people that early on did not get the intervention and the care they needed, of remedies that have worked all the way across the world. You look at one test case in Uttar Pradesh, India. Everyone should go look this up. In Uttar Pradesh, where they widely prescribed ivermectin amongst other anti-malarials, and their COVID rates are near zero. Like, they are near zero of COVID rates, not just deaths. The answer is very obvious, though, and it goes to this question of we're living in a corporate tyranny. That Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Moderna, and BioNTech, they run the shots of what's happening in our country. Get it? They run the shots of what's happening. And quite honestly, I'm disgusted by how many conservatives have played along with this. And you guys ready for a real COVID thought crime? You ready for this? There's evidence to show that the vaccine is hurting a lot more than it's helping in keeping the actual virus itself alive. I encourage all of you to go read Daniel Horowitz's article which is the leaky vaccine article. It's a total COVID thought crime. We had them on our show. And the numbers just suggest that the highest vaccinated countries in the world, Singapore, Israel, Gibraltar, have the highest COVID rates of any other countries across the world. The countries that are the poorest, countries that widely prescribe anti-malarials and antivirals, I should say, they're doing a lot better. And so the reason is that people don't actually make money off of ivermectin hydroxychloroquine. This pandemic has been a money printing scheme for so many people in American society. And let me just say this. So here's one of the numbers I have it written here, which is increases in COVID-19 are unrelated to the levels of vaccination across 68 countries and 2,947 counties in the United States. And it's from a Harvard researcher. And so what we are seeing, though, so aspirin, according to a Johns Hopkins study, reduces hospitalization by 50%. Do you know what the CDC did afterwards? They published an article saying that we need to reconsider America's attachment to aspirin. Do you see the game that's being played here, everybody? Now, if you're vaccinated here, I'm not here to make you feel bad. I don't do that. It's your own medical decision. It's not my business, quite honestly. Maybe it was the right choice for you, and you guys can all make your own rational decisions as you see fit. That's what liberty is all about. Instead, I think it's one of the great injustices of my life that I, on my radio show and my podcast, have a nonstop barrage of these low IQ sociopaths that come after me because I dare to do segments on ivermectin. Like, that's weird, okay? And God bless a couple people. God bless Tucker Carlson, Alex Berenson, and Joe Rogan for their willingness to talk about these things. Seriously. Because, and by the way, you might do the research like, yeah, ivermectin's not for me, but calling it a horse dewormer? You know Jimmy Carter went to Africa and distributed millions of pills of ivermectin 5 yered ago, heralded in a documentary by CNN because it helps cure river blindness, saying that ivermectin is, quote, a miracle drug. This was CNN 5 years ago. And then you dare even talk about ivermectin. You're like, it's a horse dewormer, Joe Rogan, all this. And honestly, they picked a fight with the wrong man. Joe Rogan was uncancelable. He was way too masculine to deal with their nonsensical, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to pick a fight with me, and he has been a dog with the bone. He has not let go of this. And, you know, I disagree with Rogan on a lot of different things. I'm not really big into the legalization of marijuana, whatever. But honestly, Rogan's contribution to the zeitgeist, it means the spirit of the times, to push back against COVID tyranny, has been one of the most courageous things I've seen in media in the last couple of years. So why is this happening? It's the same reason why we were controlled by a couple defense contractors to keep on going to war in the Middle East. It's the same reason that in Chicago, when you get a brick that gets thrown through your window, chances are it's the window repairman that did that at 3 o'clock in the morning because he wants the business. We have the treatments, everybody, that very well everyone should be made aware of. I don't use the word cure. I don't use any of that stuff. But if you have not gone into the details, you have been done such a disservice. And then I encourage all of you, we have this posted on our social media feeds, also charliekirk.com, for 3.5 minutes straight. Aaron Burnett tonight, brought to you by Pfizer. Don Lemon tonight, brought to you by Pfizer. Almost every single nightly broadcast is bought by the very people that are then using public policies away to try to mandate vaccines for you and your children. And we got to push back against it. Free your mind, everybody. There's a lot more to the story than the media is telling you. Thank you for being here tonight. We got to get to the next question. Thank you.
Hi, Charlie. Thank you for being... Thank you for being in Idaho to speak on this important topic. My name is Grace. I'm 13, and I've been homeschooled since kindergarten. I really appreciate your podcast. I really appreciate your podcast. Where am I? Okay, your wisdom and your perspective. Politics can be difficult for me to fully understand, but the way in which you present ideas makes it easier to grasp. My younger sister and I recently started watching the online Hillsdale College course regarding the Constitution. Which we've been enjoying. So this is my question to you. What advice do you have for me as I move into adulthood in order to become a more informed and involved citizen?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here. And I have hope thanks to people like you. How old are you again?
13.
13. So here's a couple things I want to encourage you to do. Learn something new every single day. And focus on what it means to be a good person and a person of strong character. And especially when you get into the world of trying to be around social approval and kind of everything around you. Courage is what's missing in our country. We have a courage crisis right now. Moral courage is the most necessary yet absent characteristic in men, George S. Patton. Aristotle, who you will learn about if you continue on the wonderful Hillsdale courses. Charlie4Hillsdale.com, everybody. Get a real education. It's great. Charlie4Hillsdale.com, free of charge. We're partnering with them, and I'm glad you're already taking us. You're already well on your way. Aristotle said that courage is the ultimate virtue. Without it, there are no other virtues. Think about that. If people aren't courageous, you don't have honesty. You don't have justice. You don't have anything else you don't have beauty. You don't have wonder. If people don't have courage to act. And so at age 13, I want you to commit yourself to a life of courage. Courage is doing the right thing when you don't know how it's going to work out. Courage is committing yourself to the correct course of action, regardless of the cost associated to it. And I'm given hope by the amount of young homeschooling children that are rising up in our country. Now, let me tell you this. People say, Charlie, what does success look like? New York Times headline in 2050. America's sudden, shocking, and inexplicable right turn can be traced back to homeschooling explosion during COVID-19. That's what success looks like, everybody. God bless you for being here tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, if anyone disagrees, you're able to go to the line. That's the last time I'll say that. Okay.
I'd like to say thank you, Charlie, for coming to Idaho. We don't have this kind of thing very often, so it's pretty cool to see things like this starting to happen a bit more. I just wanted to ask, I've seen a few conservatives lately talking about the idea of national divorce and expanding our National Guards and downsizing federal military, and I agree with the idea that it is an effective option. I just wanted to know your thoughts on the necessity, likelihood, and probability of success of a strategy like that, and why it may or may not be a good idea, especially with China becoming a growing threat.
Yeah, very low, and we actually talked about a national divorce 2 years ago, and it seems that it's catching steam. Sarah Silverman, who calls herself a comedian, came out and she said, and this is a very important thing she said, and it was widely well received, I don't want to live with the unvaccinated people, conservative Christians. Why don't they have their own country and we have our own? Now, some of your reaction shows exactly why we're on very fragile footing. Some of you are like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. And so, what ties us together anymore? Almost nothing. So, yeah, it's coming. And a lot of young people actually see this a lot more clearly than people that are 50 in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Yeah, we're heading for a national divorce in the next 10 years. If we don't get a statesman and if we don't get an entire community of people that actually want to bring the country together around a national ethos and are willing to smash the insidious forces that are trying to destroy the country. So what does that look like? To answer your question, it would be an unbelievable mess, and it would probably be the closest thing to Thomas Hobbes we've seen. Good luck trying to split up the wealthiest nation in the world. Yeah, good luck with that. Oh yeah, you just do it state by state. Okay, who gets the military? Who gets the nuclear reactors? Who gets the massive data centers? Right? Who gets the relationships between states? Who gets the interstate highways? I could go on, right? Now, every problem has a solution, but yeah, it's getting to the place where all of you have nothing in common with your fellow countrymen in San Francisco right now. I'll prove it to you. You believe only women can get pregnant. They believe men can get pregnant. This is a serious thing. They believe that white people are awful and evil. You believe that skin color shouldn't be something that you judge people on. They want to massively legalize all drugs. You believe that drug usage can lead to addiction and is something that children shouldn't be exposed to. You believe America is a wonderful country. They think America is a terrible country. They think that climate change is an existential threat to existence. You think that China is an existential threat to existence. We don't agree on anything. The only thing that ties us together is the currency that we trade with. Now, this is healable. It's solvable. It's going to take a statesman. A statesman comes very rarely, everybody. A statesman like Winston Churchill or Abraham Lincoln is a once-in-a-100-year phenomenon. It has to be at the right place at the right time, of people that are willing to build broad-based coalitions, 60, 70, 80% of the country. So yeah, you're going to see, I'll give you another example. We want to try to eradicate and abolish abortion. They think there's nothing wrong with 1 million abortions a year. I could go on every single issue, right? We believe that gun ownership is a right. They want to confiscate all the guns. We want to build a southern border wall. They don't believe in any sort of borders at all, right? So I could go on. So, yeah, we are going full speed ahead towards that. And it's just a matter of time before a couple states say we're done. So how do we prevent against that? I actually think states stepping up and assuming their leadership is a check and balance against that, to be perfectly honest. I think that's actually a way that we can prevent that sort of thing from happening, to be perfectly honest with you. So, yeah, let me just kind of close by saying I think that would be a terrible thing for the world. I don't support it. But that's where we're headed. I'm just being honest with you. And it's going to take a generation of people that believe in a national project, that believe in the American story to try to revive us. I really do. Some people say, Charlie, we're not as divided as you think. I don't actually agree with that anymore. When I see people outwardly saying they don't want to live in a country with the unvaccinated people, really? You know you're born unvaccinated, right? You know that's kind of like the natural state of being. Kind of weird. I just want to make sure every American and every person in Idaho knows the stakes, that a national separation is coming if we don't rise up and build broad-based coalitions around liberty. This is one of the reasons why we got to stop this garbage. This garbage is playing into it big time. Thank you for being here tonight. You have a disagreement?
Yeah, we have an opposing question right here. Okay. Charlie, so I'm originally from California, so don't hate me too much. But I'm a very proud conservative. So what would be the exact issue with full legalization of marijuana?
How much time you got? So, yeah, everything from it's a false promise of liberty. So I used to be kind of for this because I was in high school and I used to say, oh yeah, people used to do weed, like whatever. First of all, it makes the places that you live unenjoyable for almost all people. And I'll prove it to you. So Denver, Vegas, Los Angeles, San Francisco, when weed is legalized, it becomes a messier, dirtier, just objectively unpleasant place to live. Has Idaho legalized weed yet? Was there a push for it? Okay, good. Ontario, Oregon has? Well, I mean, all of Oregon has, I'm sure. And so that's number one. Number two, I think that we as conservatives kind of get into a trap here, right? They're like, well, if we really believe in limited government, then why are we outlawing weed? This is a libertarian argument, right? We should make stances very clearly of what is virtuous and what is good, and we should try to say our laws should, in the best case, reflect that. Now, do you want to have a conversation around locking somebody up for 20 years because they have weed? Like, that's a totally separate conversation. But every promise the weed lobby made in Denver, not every promise, but the top 5, were actually totally wrong. For example, they said marijuana usage rates will go down if you legalize it. They've gone up. They said that young people won't be exposed to it. There are more young people going into the ICU that are using weed than ever before in Colorado and in Denver. And it's this also question, and you see this all across the mountain, the Mountain West, as weed gets legalized, does crime go up? And the answer is yes. Crime does go up. And good luck trying to figure out the driving under the influence thing. I think it's this false sense of liberty where we as conservatives think like, yeah, we're going to be more free because we deregulate this one thing. And I'll just say this, it's a total blanket statement, and I might offend somebody, I really don't care, and Joe Rogan will totally disagree with me. I think weed is really bad for people. I think weed makes you lazier. I think that it makes you a less whole human being. Now, medically, maybe it can work in certain circumstances. I will yield that. It's probably better than some of the pharmaceutical stuff. I think those are small examples, but as a lifestyle drug, no, don't expect me to just give my platform of public policy recommendations and cultural recommendations and be like, oh yeah, you could be a great person and also do weed every single day. No, I actually don't think that's your greatest use of your time, your energy. I think instead that it actually diminishes your soul in a certain sense. And I'm going to keep on standing against it. Do you have a follow-up question or thought? Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. We'll finish out the line.
Hi, Charlie. My name is Dylan. I'm a student at Boise State. I was wanting to sort of bring it back to Idaho because I was born and raised here. I went up through the public school, and I think I can say this pretty safely. Our education system sucks. We ranked 51st after the District of Columbia in funding for our public education system. My mother's a teacher up north as well. And right now, I was curious, like, what do you think is a proper amount of funding for a kid? Because up north, for example, we have this, what they like to call grasshoppers. It's where teachers will go straight out of the university, teach for a year in Idaho to get their experience, and then they'll bounce over to states like Washington or Oregon, where they'll actually get paid a living wage. Like, for me personally, I'm a college student. I didn't have any credit score. My mom is currently in charge of 6 schools right now for the single pay of 1 teacher, and she couldn't even co-sign on my own half of my apartment that I live in right now. What do you think needs to happen in the state to sort of address these issues?
So you said Idaho. I don't know the specifics, and I'm sure there's a lot of people in this room that will. So I'll kind of speak more broadly, but I'm just curious. So where does Idaho rank in outputs, not just funding? Not very good.
In education output, I believe it's like 36 is
Okay,
what we
so
jumped out
51
to.
for funding, 36 for output. Okay, obviously not great. So there isn't always that's somewhat of a correlation, but there isn't always a correlation between funding and outputs. I'm a huge advocate for school choice. I think school choice is very, very important and terrific. And so, yeah, look, again, there's all these complexities in states like Idaho that I quite honestly am not read into, such as busing and rural schools and magnet schools. And I will allow all of our wonderful state policy experts to talk about kind of what works and what doesn't work. I will say this, though, that it's the quality of the education that needs to be focused on, not necessarily the dollar amount. So in Chicago, a Catholic school will have much higher outputs for about $7,000 a year per student. I don't know if Idaho schools get that much or not.
Per student, I believe the numbers roughly are about 7,000.
Yes, that's about right.
The national
Okay.
average is about 14,000.
Yes, so but inner city schools, though, will get about $7,000, $8,000 a student, and their outputs are far better than the well-funded schools in Chicago or New York or some of the public schools. And so part of it comes to teacher dedication and the type of students that are going there. But yeah, I have long said this, that if there was a great bargain that was struck of being able to fire teachers at will to be able to pay teachers more, I would sign that in a second. To be able to say that we get rid of the bad teachers and fire good teachers, I think that's a phenomenal bargain. You'd have to talk to your policymakers here in Idaho about actually, funding and allocation and all that. My guess is one of the reasons why you don't have the funding that necessarily you would want in Idaho is because you have such a sizable homeschooling population and private school community here in Idaho, which I hope that doesn't ever get put in jeopardy or get put into question if there is some sort of huge movement to try to get Idaho schools better funded. So I'll yield to the experts on that. I know there's plenty here in this room that could speak to that, but I will say this. Parents need to be the deciding factor in where kids go to school and how they're educated. That is true no matter what state we're in. Thank you so much.
Hi, Charlie.
Jeez, I was loud. We got to hold the mic. Sorry.
Yep. Oh, yeah, sorry.
We've seen some wacky things.
You talked about white privilege, oppressors versus the oppressed.
Yeah.
Can you specifically say that CRT is anti-white?
Oh yeah, absolutely, for sure.
That's really what I wanted to know, because I know that a lot of people, they kind of dance around that and they don't want to say it's anti-white. So
Yeah,
that was my question.
Anti-white, anti-American, anti-decency. I mean, when you start to all of a sudden have black-only dormitories, when you're going to say we're going to hire people based on skin color, yeah, I mean, it's explicitly anti-white.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Hey, I first off, as a young person myself, I lost my job as a result of vaccine mandates through Walmart's national mandate. I want to state that a little bit about that. I am a descendant of a member of Samuel Adams' Sons of Liberty, as demonstrated by my shirt here. I've had ancestors that were there on the night of March 5th. 1770, which was in the first when five of them were shot dead, that were unarmed, and what you had in the American Revolution, you had a wealthy class paralleled by the historical fiction John E. Tremaine portraying the Light family, if you've ever read classical literature. But now you have you don't have a government.
Need the question, please. Sorry.
You have Bill Gates and all these other people going up and buying land. They're turning these homes, these homes that just get built into giant expensive rental projects. If a wealthy person can literally purchase people's freedom, what do we do about that? Because that's not just my concern for me, that's a concern for every young person here who wants the same future my parents and everyone else before him did.
Yeah, so this is an important question. Thank you, though. And we share that history. My family's been here since 1620, and I'm a son of the American Revolution. So our ancestors were fighting alongside. And I want to make one point on that because I think it's important how we talk about the American Revolution because it's sometimes misunderstood. So, yeah, first, again, I'm sort of a radical with this. I think Idaho should say that Bill Gates should not be able to buy up swaths of farmland to do what he wants in the state of Idaho. And I know that some people say that's not a conservative free market position. Yeah, Bill Gates is an imperialist. He doesn't want what's best for Idaho. Him buying up hundreds of thousands of acres is for some malevolent purpose. He did that here, right? Was it here or Missouri? Yeah, it was here, okay. It was here. I know, I read it was somewhere in the Northwest. And yeah, the legislature could and should block it. Like, go buy a bunch of land somewhere else. And look, this goes to show, this is why Idaho and Montana and Wyoming are going to be the places where the rubber really hits the road. Land is going to be the new currency, everybody, I'm telling you. With inflation that's coming through, if you own something that can produce, if you own livestock, if you own something that has objective value and you own a lot of it, then you are going to be the richest people. Idaho has a lot of land and a lot of decent people and a lot of producing land. And that's why all of a sudden you see the oligarchs all coming into these states trying to buy up your land. And I know it's tempting. You get 5 times cash offer to go sell your family farm. I know it's tempting. I get it. But understand there's a deeper game at play. Where are you going to go? You're going to go buy some condo in Denver because of that? Right? So let me get this straight. You're going to give up your strategic advantage to give up what Bill Gates wants so you could go into the urban area while he goes into the rural. He knows what's coming next. He knows that there's going to be disorder and chaos, and he wants something that's objectively valuable. So what can we do about it? The legislature needs to take a stand against it and say that it's not a conservative value to come in when you're worth $135 billion to go buy up family farms and swaths of land, to then use that against you and make you guys permanent renters when your ancestors and the people that lived here and sacrificed when there was no heating, right, in Idaho, all of a sudden that we now have to live under the tyranny of some Microsoft creep globalist that wants to come in and make you, some sort of permanent renter. Like, we shouldn't tolerate that. It's not right. So, all right, thank you. And yeah, I mean, if you look at the Great Reset, the promises from the World Economic Forum, they said by 2030 you'll own nothing and you'll be happier than ever. And Idaho stands in the way of that. And so just understand the big game that's at play here. A couple things in closing, everybody. I want to thank our amazing Turning Point USA students again for your leadership. This has been incredible. If you are not yet involved with Turning Point USA, start a high school chapter, start a college chapter. And here's my call to action, everybody. You are in a state that will determine the future of America. It's going to take action and it's going to take courage. My wife and I have actually looked at property here in Idaho, but I'll be honest, we want to see more action out of the state before we actually, I'm not kidding. We're looking at Florida more than Idaho, a state that has more registered liberals than conservatives, because they're moving things along. But you guys have the power. This is a state of 1.8 million people. This is a state where action really matters, and you could stand up and make things happen. Be the same person in public that you are in private. Be the same person outdoors that you are indoors. What does that mean? Don't all of a sudden put on some sort of camouflage and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be a moderate liberal. Like, if you believe something, say it. If you believe in the gospel, if you believe in God, don't shy away from that. Don't be like, yeah, I'm going to have to pander to these other people. Don't do that. And we are going to have your back no matter what the cost. I want to thank you guys that support our podcast and our radio show. We work really hard on it. Thank you guys for thinking about subscribing. It's all on your phone. You could do that. But in reality, look, the country's at a fragile moment, and they want you to believe that you have no power. Their biggest trick that they're playing is as if you guys do not have the ability to fix things. That is not true. You, all of us together, just this room, can change the trajectory of the nation and the state of Idaho. It's going to take action. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take maybe, realigning yourself with a couple friends. But we are still a government by and for the people, a citizen-led government. And us together, we can take back the country, and we will. God bless you guys. Thank you so much, and God bless Idaho.